Na sisi tukiwa watu wa Kenya na tunajivunia Kenya yetu, basi tuendelee kama kawaida, tuchaguane na tutamaliza, na tunajua tutashinda.
Cometh the hour, cometh the man. His leadership skills are unmatched, his track record unbeatable, his experience unprecedented.
We'll continue to manage the economy prudently in order to achieve more growth and raise the standards of living of all Kenyans.
He is a man on a mission to turn Kenya around, and he succeeded so far in only 5 short years.
Today, I am delighted to join you all in celebrating this important milestone in our efforts to get the livestock industry back into production. And we are back into production.
His leadership skills have seen the country achieve unimaginable growth rates, 7% and counting the last year alone, the highest in decades. He's privatized industries, brought back a spirit of investment, encouraged local competition, and made us all proud to be Kenyans. And now he's asking Kenyans for another chance to prove that he's the right man at the right place at the right time. He is Mwai Kibaki, and he was born to lead. He was born Emilio Mwai Kibaki on November 15, 1931, in Gatuyaini village, Othaya division, Nyeri, the 7th and last born child of Kibaki Gathinji and the late Teresia Wanjiku. Young Kibaki's formal years were like any other boy his age. He herded his father's cows, learned carpentry in school, and during school holidays worked as a turnboy for a local bus company to earn some extra money. After primary school, he proceeded to Mangu High School, where he successfully completed his O-levels. With his grades, he was accepted to the prestigious Makerere University in Uganda, where he studied economics, history, and political science. It was here that his political activism was born. He served as chairman of the Kenya Students Association and the vice chairman of the Makerere Students Guild. He graduated in 1955 with a first-class honors degree in economics and earned a scholarship to the prestigious London School of Economics. He went back to Makerere in 1958, where he taught as a lecturer. In the meantime, the calls for independence from the British were getting louder and louder, and the country needed the services of its preeminent academics and professionals. So in 1960, he quit Makerere and returned home to join the Kenya African National Union, or KANU, one of the African parties pushing for change. In 1962, Kibaki met and married Lucy Muthoni, and they would go on to have 4 children: Judy, Jimmy, David, and Tony. Independence finally came in 1963 after a long struggle with the British. It also inflamed the ambition of the people of Kenya. It opened up new industries and economic prospects. Kenyans could now determine their own future and elect their very own representatives. Mwai Kibaki therefore became a people's representative in 1963. He ran and won the Donholm constituency seat in Nairobi, now Makadara. He was made parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Finance from 1963 to 1965. That same year, he was appointed by President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta as Minister of Commerce and Industry. In a short space of time, Mwai Kibaki had become a central figure in the development, stability, and prosperity that came about in the early years after independence. Soon after, he was made Minister of Finance, and this was the familiar picture Kenyans knew him by, with briefcase in hand on budget day. Under his stewardship in the finance ministry, the economy grew an average of 7% during the 1960s and 70s. Farmers were being paid high prices, coffee and tea industries expanded, and horticultural production began. By quickly establishing a manufacturing base, Kenya became the leading supplier of goods in the East African community. Even the oil crisis of the 1970s failed to prevent the momentum of Kenya's growth. Kenya was enjoying the windfall of good governance and wise leadership under the stewardship of educated and qualified technocrats like Mwai Kibaki. In 1978, a nation in shock mourned the passing away of its founding father, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. As the baton of leadership passed from one leader to the next, as mandated by the Constitution, Vice President Daniel Arap Moi became the new president. Mwai Kibaki found himself side by side with the incoming President Daniel Arap Moi, a position he served with dedication and loyalty for more than a decade. Around here, he was simply known as the man next to the man. Mwai Kibaki was re-elected in all subsequent elections in 1979 and through the 1980s.
Mimi, Mwai Kibaki, naapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, na nitaitumikia Kenya kwa moyo wangu wote, na kwamba nitaihifadhi, nitailinda na kutetea katiba ya Kenya kwa mujibu wa sheria iliyowekwa. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu msaidie.
He carved a reputation as a conscientious and diligent government minister who operated with seasoned professionalism. By the end of the 1980s, the clamor for political change was gaining fever pitch. Politicians from the opposition were galvanizing together to ignite what was to become known as the Second Liberation. Kenyans had found their voice, and the winds of democratic change were sweeping the country, and Kenya was taking its destiny into its own hands. (1990) saw the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution that had removed the right of Kenyans to form political parties, and a new provision in the Constitution that would limit the presidency to 2 terms. It was at this point that Mwai Kibaki would have to make a decision that would determine the future of his political life and that of the nation.
Sina wasiwasi kabisa, nina uhakika kabisa ya kunitosha tena zaidi. Simply kwa sababu Kibaki amerule mwaka 5. Na Kenyans wengi hata saa hizi, hata oppositions wanasema kama Kibaki tulikuwa tungepatia 1992 tungekuwa mbali. Everybody is saying so. Kweli na manufaa kwa Kenya mzima. Mimi kura yangu itaenda kwa Kibaki.
Ungana na Wakenya kote nchini. Kazi iendelee. Kura kwa Mwai Kibaki.
Iwapo nitapiga kura kwa sasa, kura yangu nitampa Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki. Sababu zangu ni kwamba nina watoto ambao ni wadogo ambao wako kwenye primary school, nina hakikisho ya kwamba mwaka ujao sitalipa school fees ya high school. Kura yangu nitampigia Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki.
Ungana na Wakenya kote nchini. Kazi iendelee. Kura kwa Mwai Kibaki.
Rome was not built in a day. What has happened over the last 5 years is work in progress. Yani tunaendelea na tunahitaji some more time kuona more progress. Kusema kweli, majimbo si the way forward. Juu itatudivide as a nation. Kwa sasa tunahitaji kuwa pamoja. Na pamoja ndio vitu zitafanyika the right way. I'm certain 100% mimi nitampigia kura Mwai Kibaki.
Ungana na Wakenya kote nchini. Kazi iendelee. Kura kwa Mwai Kibaki.
In a move that rocked the shape of Kenyan politics forever, Mwai Kibaki, for so long the loyal vice president, broke off from Moi and KANU and decided to go it alone. The Democratic Party was created, and in one fell swoop, Mwai Kibaki had transformed himself into a leader for change in the country.
Vivyo hivyo, sisi tutajua kwamba tutashinda. Tufuate umoja, tutafute haki. Kenya mpya imeshajengeka. Imeshajengeka. Kenya ile mpya.
Under the banner of the Democratic Party, Kibaki began articulating his plans for a better Kenya.
The Democratic Party believes that Kenya must regain its lost good name and past glory. It has also the potential to elevate its status even higher in the community of nations.
In 1992, the first election since the return to multi-party politics took place. It was a highly contested election in which the opposition raised many questions on the fairness of the outcome.
This is a joint statement on the general elections on the 29th of December 1992. We recognize and identify with the desire of the majority of Kenyans for genuine democratic change. The key element in the fulfillment of this desire, and indeed in the democratization process, is the holding of free and fair elections.
Kibaki would come a commendable third behind the incumbent Daniel Arap Moi and the ever-popular Kenneth Matiba. But he wasn't deterred. Instead, the results seemed to make him more determined to fight for justice and equality for all of Kenya's citizens. In the late 1990s, Mwai Kibaki joined hands with other politicians and civil society groups in the Ufungamano initiative to bring about minimum constitutional reforms.
It is for us here to be agreed who else we want to encourage to attend this symposium at that time.
In 1997, Kibaki was back in contention. He campaigned tirelessly for victims of the land clashes. In the end, he lost narrowly to President Moi, and the Democratic Party became the official opposition party, and Mwai Kibaki, its head, the official opposition leader. It was clear that opposition politics in Kenya was maturing and new strategies being developed. Kibaki continued to focus his eyes on the ultimate prize, the presidency. He tried a new strategy, forging alliances with other parties and uniting against Moi's KANU. It was then that the National Rainbow Alliance was formed. It was the first time in Kenya's history that the opposition had come together, and Kibaki became the obvious choice to lead the challenge as the 2002 election approached.
Get the hand I told my face because, hey, I am unbogable, I am unbeatable.
A wave of euphoria and desire for real change had gripped the country. But during the campaign, tragedy struck. Kibaki was involved in a serious car accident that almost ended his campaign and almost cost him his life. But Kibaki bounced back and overwhelmingly beat the opposition candidates. He garnered more than 67% of the popular vote. The long, hard struggle had come to an end, and Kenyans ushered in a brave new era.
These provisional figures do give indication that Honorable Mwai Kibaki is ahead of the next presidential candidate, that is Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, by a very wide margin. It is not likely that the margin can be eliminated. He has therefore professionally satisfied the criterion upon which a presidential candidate must be declared elected. The Electoral Commission therefore declares Honorable Mwai Kibaki the President of Kenya.
Despite the accident, the man from Othaya had fulfilled his and the country's destiny. On December 30th, 2002, Kibaki, in a wheelchair, took the oath of office and stepped into Kenya's history books as the country's third president since independence.
Mimi, Mwai Kibaki, naapa kwamba nitatenda kazi zangu za urais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya kwa uaminifu na kutimiza wajibu wa kazi hizo. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu unisaidie.
The new era had begun with a man determined to chart a brave new future for the country.
Now, all of us, both young and old, men and women, Kenyans of every group, every race, every creed, have embarked on a journey to a promising future with unshakable determination and faith in God.
That was then in a very different Kenya from the one we live in today. 5 years later, the country is becoming prosperous and moving in the right direction. When President Kibaki was elected, he took over a country in a desperate state that failed to live up to its mighty potential. Years of misrule had left the economy in tatters. Millions remained unemployed, and the country's infrastructure and social balance had been severely eroded. The country needed an overhaul, and Kibaki used his experience and knowledge to rapidly turn things around. In a few months, the change was clear for all to see. Loss-making state corporations were turned into efficient service providers. Farmers began receiving fair prices for their produce as marketing and processing organizations such as the Kenya Meat Commission and the Kenya Cooperative Creameries were restructured. The Nairobi Stock Exchange has produced record returns as more companies become listed and more Kenyans can own a share and stake in the economy. In 5 years, Kenya has bounced back. Jobs have been created. Foreign investors are streaming in. Tourism is booming. Simply put, the country is working. Kibaki's love of education and vision for seeing a generation learn made him make some sweeping reforms in the field of education. Free tuition for all primary schools, something he now wants to extend into the secondary level.
To ensure that as many teenagers as possible attend secondary school, my government will provide free secondary education from January 1st, the year 2008, next year.
He wants to build infrastructure, roads, bridges, highways and byways. He wants to help farmers grow more, sell more, do more. He wants to encourage Kenyans to invest in their own country. He's made banking safer